Welcome back to Today in Atlanta Sports. It is January 26th. Once again, I am your host, Chase Irle, joined by my co-host, Alex Lord. We did not have any sports in Atlanta again, but we did have plenty of news. Most importantly, Sean Payton, an arch rival, probably the biggest rival out of all Atlanta sports teams, I'd say he's probably one of the most hated, if not the most hated figure, calls it quits in New Orleans. Sean's kind of a slimy dude, so if he went and picked up a job in Dallas or somewhere else, I know he's still under contract with New Orleans, but if he kind of slimed his way out of there, I would not be surprised. But hey, the Falcons are done with him. That's all we know. And that's a joyous day.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised at all if he was very careful in all of his press conference quotes. I mean, he sat in front of the media for an hour and spoke about all these stories, but he was very careful and to say he wasn't retiring, that he was just stepping away. And everyone knows what that means. He's not done with football. It's just a matter of where he goes next. A lot of people have pegged Dallas, which makes a lot of sense. But for now, the Falcons are the beneficiary of Peyton's departure. They immediately become better in the division, regardless of the moves they have or haven't made. The Saints are in kind of a tailspin. They lost Breeze. Now they lose Peyton. Their salary cap sheet is a mess. I think they're like $60 million over the cap next year. Yeah, and they have no answer at quarterback. So they're right where they were back in 2005 without Peyton and without Breeze. So those Saints fans better bring those bags back out because it could get ugly.
Yeah, I mean, don't let all the LSU gear I'm rocking fool you. Nobody hates the Saints more than me. I think going to LSU makes you hate the Saints even more if you're not a Saints fan, because I'm not going to give them credit. They just like LSU fans, they're great fans, but they're annoying as hell when they're not on your side. And as a Falcons fans going to LSU, it was hell. It was like me and my brother versus the world out there. There weren't any other Falcons fans, so it made me hate the Saints even more. So they're screwed. I mean, no Breeze in the worst cap situation in the NFL. No Peyton. They got Taysom Hill signed for like 45 mil or whatever ridiculous contract he signed to. I mean, they're screwed. They're absolutely done. Bring the bags out. And I actually kind of like the rest of the roster outside of the quarterback position, but without Peyton, and they're going to have to get rid of a lot of these guys because they don't have any money. I know the salary cap is a lie, but when you're $80 million over it, it's a little bit different. It's not just like maneuvering a few dollars, it's $80 million. So, they're screwed. It's going to be awesome watching this, and it's going to take a while for them to get out. And I've also heard Mickey Loomis could be next. So this could get really, really, really ugly. The only reason the Saints have been relevant since they, came into the league is Peyton and Breeze and Mickey Loomis, and they could all be gone, and they're in the worst cap situation in the world. So, I mean, that brings a smile to my face. But could Tom Brady be next? That's really the next question here. If Tom Brady retires, all of a sudden the NFC South kind of looks like the Falcons' division to win. I mean, I don't want to go that far because the Bucs still have talent. If they get a quarterback in there, they could still be good. But as much as I hate the Falcons roster and would like them to rebuild, could they win the division next year?
If Tom Brady retires, it's certainly a possibility. There's no question that Tom Brady is the engine that makes the Bucs offense go. Sure, you could bring in another quarterback, but it won't even compare. They will take a significant step back. They themselves aren't quite in the salary cap mess as the Saints are, but they have big decisions to make on players like Chris Godwin, who's playing on a franchise tag. He's certainly bound to test free agency. But it's not just the Bucs. If they lose Tom Brady, you still got to compete with the Panthers. But the Panthers just hired Ben McAdoo as their offensive coordinator. And it seems like Matt Rule doesn't know what he's doing. The NFC South, if Brady retires, can quickly become the worst division in football. But every division winner goes to the playoffs, and the Falcons could sneak into the playoffs. If Brady retires winning the division, say winning 7 games, that would be ugly, but it's possible.
Yeah, I mean, Brady has that effect where like he kind of brings in a super team with him. Like he not only is he coming, he's coming with Gronk, he's coming with Leonard Fournette, he's coming with AB. And without Brady, that all kind of falls apart. These guys aren't taking pay cuts. Mike Evans said after the Super Bowl, we'll all take pay cuts. A lot of them did take pay cuts and shorter term deals. That's not happening without Brady. So not only do you lose Brady, you lose that whole little bandwagon behind them that's so willing to take the pay cuts to win championships. So yeah, I mean, that could easily fall apart. Who knows if Arians even comes back? If Brady doesn't come back, does Arians come back?
I
I
think
don't.
he committed. I think he committed to coming back already. But even still, losing all those players is a big deal. But they're losing their coordinators as well. Byron Leftwich is rumored. So, it could blow up quickly.
Yeah, all of a sudden the NFC South is the biggest shit show in the world, and the Falcons look like the calmest team among all of them, which is just shocking to say. In other news, we had some bitter, like I'm not going to say bittersweet because that's the wrong word, but we had the Hall of Fame voting. David Ortiz, the only guy that got in. We could argue about that all day. I have no idea how he tests positive for PEDs and gets in on the first ballot. Yet people like Barry Bonds, Roger Clemens are now off the ballot and are not going to get in. They can get in through the today's Hall of Fame committee. I think that's what it's called. It's like kind of like a committee that they say screw all the other writers. We can decide. Which we've seen Harold Baines get in that way. I think Bonds should. I mean, there's no doubt in my mind Bonds and Clemens should be in the Hall of Fame as well as A-Rod and people like that, as well as Kurt Schilling. The problem with this system is if you're a dick, if people don't like you, they don't vote for you, and it's just a ridiculous process. I mean, Big Papi cheats, got tested positive, and doesn't even have that great of stats, but he played in Boston, helped break the curse, had big moments, was like loved by the whole world, and he gets it on the first ballot. It makes absolutely no sense. But that's not what we're here to talk about. We're here to talk about Andruw Jones, who rises to 41.1% on the ballot in his fifth year. He's got 5 years remaining. I mean, this is good news, really. I know he didn't get in, and people are going to be like, "Oh, how do you not let Andruw Jones in?" The reality of the situation is he's gone up 34% in the last 4 seasons. He needs 75 to get in. By the time he's in year 8, 9, I think he gets in. He's definitely on pace. If you look at guys like Larry Walker, who took to their 10th try or whatever to get in. So Andruw Jones is on pace to get in the Hall of Fame. It's just going to take longer. We're going to have to wait a few more years.
Yeah, this is a touchy subject, and it's something I have been reading about all morning, because I'm just confused on the Hall of Fame criteria, and they vote on 6 or 7 different criteria to get in, and character is one of those things. But I spoke to Jeff Schultz, who works for The Athletic, and I was just questioning what was going on. And his whole point was that even if voters ask for direction on what they should or shouldn't vote on, they're given none. Representatives from the Hall of Fame give no sense of advice or direction on how voters should or shouldn't take in PED use, or whether they did or officially didn't. The voting system is completely flawed. It's one of the worst things in sports. And my question was to him: how does it change? What could cause the Hall of Fame representation to take into account that they should be a little bit more detailed in the criteria? And Schultz said, basically nothing, and it might never change. So this is going to be the normal forever, it seems like. And it's a shame to baseball fans everywhere. Whether, I'm a Hank Aaron truther, Hank Aaron has the record. But you can't tell the story of baseball without Barry Bonds. And there's plenty of other people who have gotten into the Hall of Fame with bigger, issues off the field than steroids on the field. So it's just a big jumbled mess, and it's a shame, really. It really is.
Yeah, I mean, frankly, I don't give a shit about the criteria. This isn't fucking rocket science. I could tell you who belongs in the Hall of Fame, who doesn't belong in the Hall of Fame, and whether you might have a discrepancy on one player or another. Okay, maybe that guy doesn't get in, but the guys that should get in would be first ballot, second ballot, third ballot Hall of Famers without a doubt. There's no reason Barry Bonds isn't in here. Now, if you make a criteria where you say literally if you cheated, no steroid people are even allowed on the ballot, okay, like that's one thing. Like if you just say, hey, they're not even allowed on the ballot, everyone who tested positive is out of the Hall of Fame. Okay, that's one thing. But as far as criteria, if you give me, like, I know who should, like, anyone who watches these games knows who should. If you paid attention to baseball for the last 20 years, knows who should be in the Hall of Fame. Barry Bonds belongs in the Hall of Fame. Alex Rodriguez, I don't like him. He belongs in the Hall of Fame. Curt Schilling, I don't give a shit if you care about his political views. He belongs in the Hall of Fame. Jeff Kitt wasn't the nicest guy, belongs in the Hall of Fame. Like, this shit is not rocket science. So I don't really agree with the criteria argument, other than if steroid people aren't allowed in, they should just not even put them in the ballot. That's really the only thing that I would say. Everything else is just like, hey, we know who's good enough to be in the Hall of Fame. And you could even take steroids into account. Like, personally, if Big Papi never did steroids, I don't even think he would be in the Hall of Fame. I think that's the most frustrating thing about him getting in over everybody else, is because, like, if he didn't take steroids, he's not going to the fucking Hall of Fame. No way. The guy was a borderline Hall of Famer as is. He just had a good story and was nice. Meanwhile, Barry Bonds, if he never took a steroid in his life, would have waltzed in the Hall of Fame. He still would have been one of the best players. Still would have hit 500-600 home runs. Still would have stolen 300-400 bases. Still would have had 5 MVPs. He is still arguably the best player of all time, whether he took steroids or not. So that's the frustrating part. You have an actual cheater who's already a borderline Hall of Famer get in because you liked him, you like his story. He's a nice guy. That's the frustrating part to me. And this is it. I love Big Papi, so I understand it. Like, I would have voted for him because I like him, and I would have and I don't think the steroid issue to me is very overblown because everyone was doing it in that time. I would say, a really, really, really high percentage of players, whether they got caught or not, especially the great ones, were on steroids. So I think you almost have to take that out of the conversation, but it's a whole big jumbled mess, and it's disappointing that a guy like Barry Bonds doesn't get in. Yeah, he was a dick, but if you're talking about, the sport in itself, the guy he's the best player to ever play. His stats when he was on steroids, I don't know if you ever, going to Barry Bonds' baseball reference page is one of my favorite things to do. Like, I'll do that probably 3 times a year because it's that unbelievable what he does. He had a 680 or whatever, 609 on base percentage one year. He had more walks than strikeouts times like 4 one year. He won like 7 MVPs. He averaged 8 WAR a year. He is literally it's ridiculous what he did. Steroids or not. So he belongs in the Hall. He doesn't get in. Big Papi does. But I don't have a vote, and my vote probably wouldn't fucking matter. So it is what it is. I want to stick with baseball here because I saw something last night, and I think it's the coolest part of the Game 6 Jorge Soler home run. I'm going to try to show it to you guys. First time using this thing, but it should work. All right, so this is this picture. And we have Max Fried here circled right here. And you have everyone celebrating the home run. And this is Max Fried over here. Head down, not celebrating, focused as hell, an absolute bulldog. And this is why I've always said, the guy's a junkyard dog. He's my favorite player on the team because he's just got a mean streak, man. He's got that Kobe Bryant in him. He's got that Trae Young in him. Like, he is the most competitive person I've seen on the Braves in a long time. He is an absolute freak. So, yeah, everybody's celebrating. It's 3-0. You got our best pitcher on the mound. This guy's laser focused. And I don't think you see that from a lot of pitchers. I know even guys like Max Scherzer, like, they'd be the first guy up screaming and yelling. This guy doesn't give a shit. He says, I got a job to do, and I am going to go out there and do it perfectly. He throws 6 shutout innings. I just thought that was really cool because 3 months later, I've seen this video from every angle, and someone pointed this out on Twitter to me. And I was just like, wow, I have never seen that. That is absolutely sick. This guy's a freaking savage.
Yeah, you got to love that from your stars. Generally speaking, the stars are the most outgoing, the most exaggerative guys on the team, generally speaking. And so when you get that from your leader, the leader of the one of the leaders of this team, it really ingrains into your mind just how wide open this championship window really is. When you have guys like Max Fried and Ozzie Albies and all these guys sticking around for the next 5 years, it really puts into perspective just how possible it is the Braves go on and win a couple more World Series, especially with guys like Charlie Morton returning, people like Freddie Freeman potentially returning. It really is encouraging, and it's just fun for Braves fans to kind of see these little things that, we didn't see initially. I didn't see it initially. Nobody really did. And just to see that is super cool. I hope Braves fans look at it and appreciate greatness when you see it. Max Fried is exactly what you said. He's a bulldog on the mound. I am maybe a little intellectually deficient in baseball terms, but I can notice competitiveness when it's there. When he got his ankle stepped on, I mean, it was just like a light switch flipped. I mean, it was incredible. He immediately turned it on. It didn't matter what happened to his ankle. He compartmentalized that injury or whatever it was, and then did exactly what you just said, throw 6 shutout innings.
Yeah, I mean, Max Fried, like I said, my favorite player on the team. He's actually up for contract after 2 seasons, but I would love, and I thought it was something that could happen this offseason. Obviously, things got more complicated with 2 months of lockout so far. But if the Braves could lock him up to an extension before he comes up to an unrestricted free agent, buy out his last 2 years of arbitration, that would be absolutely phenomenal. Kind of like the Marlins did with Sandy Alcantara. Freeds will be a little bit more, but I expect that to be something they really try to get done. But if I'm Fried, if I'm not worried about injury, I would just test unrestricted free agency. I mean, why not? If he hits the open market and has 2 more years like he has, I mean, he's getting 200 plus mil, or at least 150 plus. So I would probably do that. But hey, if the Braves can convince him to take, add a couple more years onto his contract for 50 mil or something like that, just as insurance, that would be absolutely fantastic. We'll see in that regard. But that's a guy I think the Braves have to hold on to. He's the ace of this staff, and I hope he's the ace of this staff for the next decade. Last thing we want to talk about, Hawks. Hawks finally play. They had two days off. They played on Sunday. Yeah, they had 2 days off. They play the Kings tonight at home, where they are now 11-11 after losing 10 straight, and then they've won a couple since then. So hopefully they can get another win at home. The Kings are 6-15 at home on the road. 6-15 on the road. So, you have to like the odds of them extending it to 5 straight wins. We might be getting Bogey back too. I don't think anything's come out on that yet. So I think he's a game time decision. And I think so is DeAndre Hunter. But hopefully both those guys play. If they do, the Hawks are 9.5-point favorites. You got to like their odds.
Yeah, I'm going to the game tonight. It's my first Hawks game this season, which is a shame. I feel bad. But I'll be there in attendance. I'll be gambling. I like that 9-point spread. I think the Kings can cover it just because I think DeAndre Hunter is not going to play. And I would expect Bogey not to play either, just because there really is no reason to push at least DeAndre Hunter, who's shown to have an injury concern. I mean, his injury history is concerning. And he might be just sore, but there's no reason to push it. I do like the Kings to cover just because I'm not that convinced just yet that the Hawks are winning all these games that they should absolutely be winning. They kind of play down to the competition. So we'll see.
You know what I always say? Anytime I have a feeling my team is not going to cover, that's when they always cover. I found that very, very true, especially when it comes to the Falcons. Like anytime I'm like, oh, the Falcons are shit. There's no way they cover 5 points against the Lions, or there's no way they beat the Jags by a touchdown or whatever. And it's like, oh yeah, they did. No way they beat the Saints on the road. Hell no. And it's just like, well, yeah, we just did. So anytime I think there's an absolute certainty that my team is going to not cover, they always somehow cover.
I might just fade you tonight. I'll let you pick first and just fade you.
If I had to pick 9.5, I mean, that's screaming. Vegas is telling me the Hawks are winning by 20. That's a big line. I feel like we always kind of have tight games with the Kings, but I don't even know. I definitely wouldn't bet on that game.
I have to.
Yeah. I mean, you're there. But that wraps it up on this fine Wednesday. Thank you guys so much